Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is Thin Ice, and it's a little kiddies game. Most people have probably seen it or heard of it before, but the object is to stack as many marbles as you can up here on this upper surface. You may not be able to see it, but this upper surface is a tissue paper, and I'm going to use these little tongs to pick up the marbles. The trick is the marbles are in water, so they're dripping a little bit. You can see that. And so they're eventually going to weaken the tissue paper until they all fall through. And I'm playing by myself, but when you play with somebody else, you'd want them to be the one to cause it all to fall. So what's going on here? Are we demonstrating Newton's three laws of motion? Well, obviously, Newton's second law says it takes a force to accelerate a mass. All of these marbles are going to stay here until the force of my muscles bring them up to the top. And so they're going to do that each time. Now you see some of these first ones bouncing on the top. That's because there's a tension force at the very top because the tissue paper is so tight. And so it's also demonstrating that a force is necessary to accelerate a mass. The tension of the tissue paper accelerates them upwards and causes them to bounce. So we've got Newton's second law. We've also got Newton's first law. All the objects down at the bottom, all the objects at the top, they stay at rest until they are acted upon by an outside unbalanced force. The ones at top will have to wait until the tension force gets so weak from the water that they break through. It's similar to a normal force in this case, but because it's tension, it's being held taut. It's actually acting, this normal force is acting, or this tension force is acting like a normal force and holding everything up. But the truth is, it's still a tension force. And that tension force gets weaker because the water weakens the force in this case because it's paper, and paper gets weakened by water. So we've got this tension force getting weaker and weaker, and these objects here at the top, these marbles, will stay at rest until they are acted upon by the outside force of gravity. Once gravity gets strong enough to break through the tensional force, we will see it. Now, Newton's third law of motion. Is Newton's third law of motion present? Well, we actually see it when it bounces. I'll try to get another one to bounce like that. For every force, there's an equal and opposite force. So when I drop it, it falls downwards. That's the downward force of its own momentum, or force of gravity, but the tensional force causes it to bounce back up. So we actually see it pushing against each other. You can also see it quite clearly in the sag here. You might be able to see it underneath, but the sag of the tissue paper. The tension is pushing upwards, but gravity is pushing downwards. So these are equal and opposite forces acting on each other. Wow, I've got like 15 up there already. I'm doing a little bit better than I thought I was going to do. Maybe this game actually knows how it's working. So Newton's first law, I'm moving objects from resting to moving and then putting them in place, and then they stay at rest until gravity can act upon them. Newton's second law, I'm using the force of my muscles and the force of the elasticity of my little tongs right here to accelerate these masses to the top. And then we see Newton's third law in action as each one of them pushes down with their weight, but the tension force of the tissue paper holds them back up until one of them gives way. And then we're going to see Newton's first law in action. Objects in motion will stay in motion. We'll see them all fall downwards. And they'll continue to fall downwards until they splash here in the water. Look at this. This is doing so well. There's no way it's going to hold much longer. Mr. Skinner has lost at this game many, many times, and I believe Mr. Skinner is going to lose this time because Mr. Skinner is just too good to be beaten. Oh my goodness. I've only got about 7 marbles left. Oh! Spoke too soon. I said 7 marbles left, and it fell through. Newton's laws in the game of thin ice.